you're watching World News Program live from Algiers with Madame Zian to the headlines. The Israeli occupation continues its deadly campaign in the Gaza Strip, committing a horrific new massacre that wiped out an entire family in Khan Yunis. And at least 35 people were killed in Zionist airstrikes on the Gaza Strip since dawn on Friday, as thousands of Palestinians are fleeing in the Shuja'iyya and Zaytun neighborhoods following evacuation orders. A Zionist airstrike on Lebanon claims the life of a Qassam commander and his two sons. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam says the attack on Sidon is a blatant violation of Lebanon's sovereignty. And in the Red Sea, Yemen's Ansar Allah movement announces a renewed strike on the American aircraft carrier USS Truman. The UN Human Rights Council adopts an Algerian resolution on the impact of anti-personnel landmines on human rights. Algeria warns that the consequences of landmines remains severe and far-reaching, while right groups reveal that the Moroccan occupation has planted millions of them across Western Sahara. And a storm of U.S. tariffs deepens the rift between Washington and its allies. Donald Trump hints at willingness to negotiate. China hits back with counter tariffs, and Canada declares that its relationship with the U.S. will never return to what it was once. Hello and welcome to the details of our program. First, medical sources reported the killing of 38 citizens in the Gaza Strip, including 30 in the southern part of the region, due to the continuous Zionist bombing since Friday dawn. According to local Palestinian sources, the Zionist warplanes carried out a series of airstrikes targeting a house in the Al-Manara neighborhood southeast of Khan Yunis and a tent housing displaced people.
49 people were inside the building, among them 3-month-old babies and a pregnant woman, all children, from 2 years old and up. Not only us, the parents, the adults, but all ages, minors under 18 or over 30. They surprised us with the attack without warning. Before, they would call us and tell us to leave. I told them I wouldn't leave, and they didn't attack us. But this time, they attacked us without any prior warning.
In the city of Rafah, a man and his wife were killed in a Zionist drone strike targeting Palestinians in the northeastern part of the city in southern Gaza, according to local media reports. The same sources added that Israeli warplanes carried out intense airstrikes in recent hours, targeting northern areas of Rafah. At least 35 people were killed in Zionist airstrikes on the Gaza Strip since dawn on Friday, according to local sources. The same sources added that most of the martyrs were killed in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, while the occupation's bombardment focused on various parts of the Strip, especially in the Rafah and the Shuja'iyya neighborhood in Gaza City, in the northern part of the enclave. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza announced on Thursday that 86 Palestinians were killed and 287 others injured in the past 24 hours. In its statement, the ministry noted that the total number of martyrs since the resumption of aggression on the Strip has risen to 1,249, with more than 3,000 wounded. The ministry also pointed out that the overall death toll from the Israeli aggression on Gaza since October 7, 2023, has reached 50,609 martyrs. The Gaza Civil Defense Office said in a statement the death toll from the airstrike on Dar al-Arqam school in the Al-Tufah neighborhood east of Gaza City has risen to 31 martyrs, including children and women, with 6 people still missing whose bodies have not been recovered, along with dozens of injuries. Meanwhile, the government media office in Gaza denied the occupation's claims that the school housed the Hamas leadership compound, affirming that the attack targeted unarmed, displaced civilians. The Zionist occupation continues to seize vast tracts of Palestinian land in the Gaza Strip. After its ground operations in Rafah, it moves to the Shuja'iyya neighborhood in Gaza City. With each advance on the ground, its forces leave behind brutal massacres, resulting in dozens of martyrs and wounded, and completely wiping out cities, villages, and towns in the Gaza Strip. Usama Ayadi has more.
The occupation is wiping out cities and villages in the Gaza Strip and exterminating their inhabitants. From Rafah to the Shuja'iyya neighborhood in Gaza City, and from the east of the Gaza Strip to its west and south, shelling and direct fire target civilians, and new displacement operations are underway for Palestinians who are pursued by the occupation across Gaza with shelling and evacuation orders.
We have a catastrophe with full meaning, but we are not with this side or that side. We're just ordinary citizens. What is our fault? I want to know what is our fault. They didn't distinguish between this being jihad or that being Hamas. What do we have to do with it? We're just Gazan citizens, nothing more. What is our fault?
After bloody nights in the towns and villages of Gaza City and evacuation orders that forced residents to flee under shelling and bullets, suffering the loss of their families and homes, the Zionist occupation has begun extensive ground operations in a Shuja'iyya neighborhood, paving the way for its expansionist plan in the Strip.
We haven't slept all of last night. It was a bloody night. We've placed roofs. They flew away. We've put walls. They fell on us. Where should we go? Where should we go, people?
A war of extermination that spared no one, wiping out thousands of families. For those who missed the explosive barrels and airstrikes in Gaza, the war destroyed their lives, memories, and future.
Behind us, the situation is dire. All the houses around us, behind us, and in front of us, everyone has left their houses. Everyone is risking their lives. This is not a life. What they're doing to us is unjust. It is a shame. This is not a life. Every day, we're moving from a place to another.
This is Rafah, or what remains of it, the city that was once the destination of Palestinians. The Zionist occupation has turned it into an isolated area and a pile of rubble, from every corner of which emanates the stench of a terrible crime that passed from here. A genocidal war has lasted for more than 18 months, and the Zionist occupation continues to implement all aspects of its ongoing crime, not least of which is the expansion of the confiscation of Palestinian lands in Rafah and Gaza, embodying a criminal policy unparalleled in human history.
And during the United Nations Security Council meeting on Thursday at the UN headquarters in New York, focused on the situation in Palestine and the broader Middle East, amid the ongoing conflict with Israeli forces, United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk expressed deep shock over the recent killing of 15 medical and humanitarian aid workers, raising further concerns about potential war crimes committed by the Israeli military. Turk emphasized the need for an independent, prompt and thorough investigation into the killings, stressing that those responsible for any violations of international law must be held accountable.
I'm appalled by the recent killings of 15 medical personnel and humanitarian aid workers, which raise further concerns over the commission of war crimes by the Israeli military. There must be an independent, prompt and thorough investigation into the killings, and those responsible for any violation of international law must be held to account.
Houthi leader Abdul Malik al-Houthi said Friday that the US openly backs the actions of the Israeli occupation, adding that what's happening in Palestine is fully supported by Washington. In a speech launching summer activities, al-Houthi claimed the White House supports all crimes committed by the occupation, stressing that his group will continue to resist US strikes on Yemen, accusing Washington of siding with and protecting Israel. And 3 Lebanese citizens were killed at dawn on Friday in a Zionist airstrike that targeted an apartment in Sidon, southern Lebanon. The civil defense in southern Lebanon stated that Israeli warplanes launched an airstrike on a residential apartment in the Al-Zuhur neighborhood, killing 3 people. And the Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam condemned the violation of Lebanon's sovereignty and the continued breach of UN Resolution 1701. In a statement released by the media office, Salam emphasized the need to apply maximum pressure on the Zionist entity to compel it to stop its ongoing assaults, which have impacted various regions across Lebanon.
Once again, Israel targets civilians during the night, this time in the capital of the south. Targeting the city of Saida or any other Lebanese area is a blatant violation of Lebanese sovereignty and a clear breach of Resolution 1701 and the security arrangements related to the cessation of hostilities. The President stresses the need to exert maximum pressure on Israel to compel it to stop its ongoing attacks, which are affecting various areas, especially residential ones. He affirms that a complete halt to military operations is essential.
The Ansarullah al-Houthi group in Yemen said on Friday that it targeted enemy warships in the Red Sea led by the U.S. aircraft carrier Truman. The group's military spokesman Yahya Sari indicated that the operation was carried out by the group's naval forces, missile forces, and air force using a number of cruise missiles and drones in the past 24 hours. He affirmed the continuation of what he described as confronting the U.S. aggression against Yemen and preparing to confront any potential developments in the coming period.
Our armed forces, naval forces, missile forces, and drone forces targeted the enemy warships in the Red Sea, led by the USS Truman, with a number of cruise missiles and drones. This was the second confrontation in the past 24 hours. This confrontation lasted for several hours, during which 2 airstrikes that the enemy was preparing to launch against our country were thwarted.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan affirmed on Friday that Turkey wants no confrontation with Israel in Syria after repeated Israeli attacks on military sites there, and they undermined the new government's ability to deter threats. In an interview on the sidelines of a meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Brussels, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan stated that Israel's actions in Syria are paving the way for future regional instability. Fidan added that if the new administration in Damascus wishes to reach a certain understandings with Israel, that is their own decision.
Well, first of all, we don't want to see any confrontation with Israel in Syria, because Syria belongs to Syrians. Syria doesn't belong to Turkey. Syria doesn't belong to Israel. We cannot talk on behalf of the Syrians. The Syrian security should be decided by the Syrians. If they want to partner with certain countries, with certain international communities, they're welcome. If they want to have a certain understandings with the Israelis, it's their business.
The Human Rights Council unanimously adopted on Friday a draft resolution submitted by Algeria on the impact of anti-personnel mines on the enjoyment of all human rights. In his speech on the occasion of the International Day for Mine Awareness and Assistance in Mine Action, Algeria's permanent representative to the United Nations in Geneva, Rachid Bledhan, emphasized the adoption of a constructive, inclusive, and transparent approach through consultations, noting that the resolution calls for enhanced mine clearance efforts, increased assistance to victims, and a stronger commitment by states to complete ban on anti-personnel mines.
On behalf of the core group, made up of South Africa, Croatia, Mozambique, Peru, the United Kingdom, Vanuatu, and my own country, Algeria, I'm pleased to introduce Draft Resolution L21, entitled The Impact of Anti-Personnel Mines on the Full Enjoyment of All Human Rights. In preparing this draft resolution, the core group can proudly state that it has adopted a constructive, inclusive, and transparent approach. We have held open consultations with all delegations to ensure that this initiative enjoys broad support. Our objective is to bring the Council together around this critical issue, which transcends political considerations and requires collective and unified mobilization.
Bledhan also emphasized that anti-personnel mines have significant impact on civilians in addition to significant humanitarian, social, and economic consequences.
These weapons, which mainly affect civilians, including children, violate the most sacred rights, the right to life. They violate the right to security by creating a permanent climate of fear in the affected areas. They undermine the right to free movement by turning land, roads and villages into deadly traps. Besides direct damage, the anti-personnel mines have serious humanitarian, social and economic repercussions. They also deprive local populations of basic resources and undermine prospects for sustainable development.
Algeria's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, Rachid Bledhan, stressed on the occasion that combating landmines is a battle for human rights, noting that the draft resolution submitted by Algeria on the impact of anti-personnel mines on the enjoyment of all human rights is a living tribute to both victims and survivors.
The fight against landmines is a battle for human rights, and this objective can only be effectively achieved within a framework of international cooperation with strong political commitment and concrete actions. On the occasion of the International Day of Mine Awareness and Assistance in Mine Action, coinciding with April 4, we urge all Council members to join the consensus on this draft resolution, which we believe will be a living tribute to the victims and survivors of anti-personnel mines.
And on the International Day for Mine Awareness, the Sahrawi people remain at risk from millions of landmines planted by Morocco, especially near the Wall of Shame. Despite efforts to clear the area, these deadly remnants continue to threaten innocent lives. Hossam Barkan reports.
On the International Day for Mine Awareness, the Sahrawi people continue to face yet another crime stemming from the Moroccan occupation, this time beneath the surface of their own land, where millions of landmines, explosives, and remnants of war are scattered, particularly near the so-called Wall of Shame, built by the Moroccan occupier to further oppress and harm the Sahrawis. The Sahrawi Mine Action Coordination Office reports that nearly 10 million landmines have been planted by Morocco across Sahrawi territory, aiming to claim as many innocent civilian lives as possible. In clear defiance of international treaties, it refuses to join all under disturbing international silence. 3 full decades have passed since the 1991 ceasefire between the Moroccan occupation and the Polisario Front. Despite ongoing efforts to clear the region of Morocco's deadly remnants, contamination levels remain alarmingly high, especially with Morocco resuming its use of internationally banned weapons to pollute the land and threaten lives. On this Global Awareness Day, renewed calls are being made to shed light on the Sahrawi people's suffering and the various forms of violations they endured, including these hidden death traps spread across the occupied Western Sahara. The international community is urged to put an end to this decades-long occupation and to uphold the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination, freedom, and independence.
The UN Secretary General's personal envoy to Western Sahara, Staffan de Mistura, is conducting a 2-day visit to Sahrawi refugee camps starting Friday. During the visit, he will meet with Sahrawi authorities in an effort to advance the political settlement process for the Sahrawi cause. De Mistura's visit to the Sahrawi refugee camps comes ahead of a closed-door session to be held by the UN Security Council in mid-April, during which he is expected to brief the Council on the latest developments in the region, which is classified as the last colony in Africa. Representative to the United Nations and coordinator with MINURSO, Mohammed Sidi Ammar, reiterated the Sahrawi people's commitment to their right to self-determination, freedom and independence, emphasizing that holding a self-determination referendum is the ideal and realistic solution to decolonizing Western Sahara.
We reaffirm the attachment of the Sahrawi people to their inalienable and non-negotiable right to self-determination and independence. The Sahrawi side has repeatedly reaffirmed that the joint settlement plan of the United Nations and the Organization of African Unity, which is based on the organization of a self-determination referendum and which was accepted by both parties to the conflict, namely the Polisario Front and the Kingdom of Morocco, represent the ideal and realistic solution to achieve the decolonization process of Western Sahara.
And China has revealed that starting April 10, it will impose an additional 34% tariff on all American goods as a countermeasure to the sweeping tariffs introduced by U.S. President Donald Trump. This comes as Trump has expressed openness to negotiations, contradicting White House aides who maintain that the tariffs are not intended as a bargaining tactic. Nabil Khazini has more.
This is Shanghai, China's economic hub. It's here where many key economic deals and agreements take place. But today, what's being talked about at Shanghai's markets is the potential price rise of American products. As a consequence, some Shanghai residents are exploring the idea of limiting their consumption of products coming from the United States.
I used to buy some American products, but if the price increases, I might buy less. I bought some street fashion brands. The clothes are shipped directly from the US, maybe to Hong Kong, and then transferred to China. Now the price will be even higher.
Regarding my consumption of American products, it depends on the situation. After all, right now, many Chinese electronic products are quite impressive, so I may consider changing to Japanese, Korean, or domestic products.
This is because China has announced that starting from April the 10th, it will impose an additional 34% tariff on all American goods. The move is a countermeasure to the sweeping tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump, who now says he is open to negotiations, contradicting White House aides who insist that the tariffs are not meant as a bargaining tool.
The tariff war has begun. China's not just going to sit down. Ironically, this is the best that ever happened to China. China tech is going to steamroll ahead. U.S. tech is the one that continues to be hamstrung. And I think this is something where it's the worst policy mistake in 100 years.
Trump called the day he announced his tariffs Liberation Day. But between liberation and isolation are concerns about the long-term effects on his country's economy.
And Canadian Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly said on Friday that relations with the United States will never return to what they were before, following the announcement by U.S. President Donald Trump of new wide-ranging tariffs. In a statement upon her arrival to attend a meeting with NATO foreign ministers in Brussels, Joly added that Canada is exerting maximum pressure on the Trump administration.
So, in that sense, in Canada, what we've said is we take stock of what the U.S. has done, and at the same time, we know that the relationship will never be the same again. And that's my message to Europeans. The relationship with the U.S. will never be the same. They want to do things differently, and we understand that. And that's why we will seek to make sure that we get to an agreement on trade, but also on security, because both cannot be siloed.
British Foreign Secretary David Lammy said on Friday that the United Kingdom is in discussions with the United States to reach an economic agreement. Lammy added that all options are on the table to ensure the national interests of the British people.
And I regret the return to protectionism in the United States, something that we've not seen for nearly a century. As you know, we are consulting with business and industry at this time. We are engaged in discussions with the United States to strike an economic agreement and an economic deal. And of course, we have been absolutely clear that all options are on the table as we ensure the national interests of the British people.
The Kremlin stated that Russia must take additional measures to mitigate the negative impact of global market disruptions on its economy, following the imposition of new tariffs by US President Donald Trump. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov added in his daily briefing or press briefing that the Russian economy remains strong thanks to the measures taken by the government. He also noted that the new US tariffs did not affect Russia due to the lack of significant trade exchanges with the US. With this, our program has come to an end. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and see you on Tuesday.